Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and today we're going to be taking a look at an interview that Yoshi-P did with Play Magazine. Now, this crossed my digital desk in kind of one of the most unexpected ways. Somebody in my Discord linked the first tweet, which was just one excerpt, which really covers the topic of this video, the title of this video. However, this same person actually posted the entire interview just in individual images, but it's only in the physical magazine. I haven't found anyone who's linked me like a digital version of the same article yet. I'm sure it'll happen, but we're literally just going to look at tweets and have the magazine itself, which I've gone through and read and can get past all the fluff pieces a little bit quickly. But shout out to @StrawberrySeason for two things. One, for taking the time to post all of this. You know we're desperate for news right now. We'll take anything, especially when it covers the topic in this video. And number two, shout out to actually buying a physical magazine. So you know how few people do that? And that is the goated play right now. So thank you to them. I'll include a link in the description so you can go thank them on their actual tweets, because that's what you should do. We're using their tweets for content. So go thank them. Now, the first page in this article is really just a setup for the rest of the article. The game's been around 10 years. How's it going to keep going? What's some advice you'd give past Yoshi-P? And really, it's just a page of Yoshi-P telling the writer that if he could give advice to his past self, he'd say to pace himself, but that he probably wouldn't listen to that advice 13 years ago and would sprint anyway, so it would be kind of useless. That's what the entire first page here is actually about. Now, the second page comes with some images. It has some text, on the left-hand side. That's just kind of fluff text to go with the new areas we've seen, female Hrothgar, and of course, Urian J, whose head might be cut off at the top, but we know he's sipping on his pina colada. Now, this page, of course, just goes over how they really need to make sure that they create something that excites the player. You can see it in the giant text. But he talks about how developing the story for the game and how doing the next step is actually going to go. And he largely talks about how when A Realm Reborn was done, there wasn't this idea for this long spanning saga. He didn't know if they'd be able to develop it. It really wasn't until they were in the development for Stormblood where they realized that, yes, we can actually make this something that encompasses everything that we've done up to this point. So the team does plan ahead. They plant seeds, but they didn't know that Endwalker was going to, really be Endwalker until that point. It's worth remembering that Shadowbringers was actually supposed to be 4.0 originally, and that was changed and Stormblood was put in its place. So they've clearly gone through a lot of different iterations of how the story itself was going to play out. And of course, they now have that experience. And Yoshi-P even mentions that he has plans for 8.0 and 9.0, depending on player feedback. He's not going to say these things are happening if people don't like certain story beats and they feel like they have to change something to make something that players will better enjoy. But yeah, other than putting the foreshadowing in the development, they really didn't know for a fact that they were doing this 10-year arc until they got into the development of Stormblood. A lofty aim, and with Dawntrail already showing a ridiculous number of things to look forward to, we're excited for the future. We'll soon be exploring the continent of Tural, full of a dense forest, vast mountain ranges, and a surprise cyberpunk city. In addition to the new areas and dungeons, there are 2 additional jobs, a higher level cap, a new casual type of content called Cosmic Exploration, a very shiny graphical update, and another race to play as. The next section largely just talks about female Hrothgar and the development of them. We always create an internal competition of sorts for our characters, so basically they'll be tasked to pick up ideas of what they feel is representative. What we do is initially just create the lore, and we will give that information about the lore to the arts team, but we will not say anything about the appearance. We leave it up to them to come up with the designs on what they think would be appealing or what they think would be appropriate. They hit the nail on the head with female Hrothgar. Everything I thought they should do with them, they did actually do. So they definitely get a clap for that one. They did the same thing with Vieira, but of course they already had Fran, so there was a visual in mind there, but they did do that for male Hrothgar instead. Moving on to the next page, it actually starts with a blurb about cosmic exploration at the top. Final Fantasy XIV already has plenty of casual content that you can noodle around with and enjoy when you're not in the mood for a fight, such as the Gold Saucer and Island Sanctuaries, but Dawntrail will be adding another type of activity in the shape of cosmic exploration. Here's what Yoshida could tell us about cosmic exploration. I don't really want to give an impression of how the content would be, but in terms of this content, it's similar to Ishgardian Restoration in the respect that everyone is working towards a target together on the same world, meaning the same server. So we will continue updates on Island Sanctuary based on player feedback, meaning players have said, hey, we'd like you to keep doing stuff for this, but they really want to push this concept forward to play with everyone and combine everyone's efforts. It's a little bit cut off at the top right, but that's fine. On the other hand, with this Guardian Restoration, it was quite a straight run from start to finish, but this time we will be changing the themes and changing the visuals as the content goes on. That's why we're exploring the various areas. So people have been wondering if it will be like Ish Guardian Restoration. It seemed like it, but they never flat out said it. This is confirmation that yes, that will be the closest comparison you get. So if that is a content you are missing at Endwalker, +1 to you. I just wonder what competing for the top spot will be like compared to doing the diadem and all that. I'm not competing. I don't have to worry about that. Y'all crafters and gatherers, y'all worry about that. Okay. And then they just continue the conversation with the female Hrothgar and the development of it. There were 8 different types that were proposed. And from the 8 types, they narrow it down to 3. And then, of course, they have to pick the final one and then work on the different designs for it. But yeah, this is just developing a race kind of 101 with Yoshi-P. There's one important question that all the players want to know. Can they wear more hats? Regardless of whether it's male or female, we're working to increase the number of hat variations that we have. Ultimately, there will be no difference between male and female. Currently, there are some types of headgear which they cannot wear. We will make more variations so they will be able to wear them. So yeah, just an ongoing problem, the whole hatless problem with Hrothgar. But what they are confirming here is that male and female Hrothgars will not have different hats that they can and can't wear. If you can't wear a hat on one of them, then you can't wear that hat on the other. So at the very least, we know that's even, because I have seen people skeptical saying female Hrothgar, because they were made more recently, might have more hat options. That doesn't seem to be the case. They're making sure that it's even, whether or not that's deliberate, whether or not they could technically do more, but they won't because they know how that would look. That's up to you to speculate on. They're not specific about that. As well as a new adventure, 14 will be getting a fresh look in the form of the graphical update. Now we move down into the second post, and the text is once again very small, but this largely just goes into stuff about the graphical update. Environments and characters set to have serious makeovers. One major reason would be that with Endwalker, we were able to bring one big saga to a close. Went through that process. We had players all over the world. They played our game, and they were able to see a clean conclusion to a story that had been spanning for such a long time. I think they would be happy. No, I'm happy to have seen that conclusion, but I think they probably must have also been a bit concerned about what will happen moving forward. When players would see the graphics update, they would realize that 14 will still push on and still continue driving. So while he sets it up to make it seem like it's a big story thing, it really is just like a lot of people thought 14 was done after Endwalker. I can tell you, as someone who live streams 14 a lot, or not as of late, but in general, that so many people came in and said, isn't Endwalker the last expansion? And they weren't kidding. They weren't like doing it to be annoying. Like, people genuinely thought it was the end. If they see the game getting a graphical update, they go, oh, no, it's like really not the end. It's a nice like direct indicator that no, the game isn't over. It's not in maintenance. It's literally just ongoing. It hasn't stopped. It hasn't slowed down. None of that. It also gives players a sense of ease, so they would not need to worry about that. But it's not just for the longtime players, it's obviously for new players. They need the game to be visually appealing. And it even says here in the giant text, we need to constantly get new players in, otherwise the overall scale of our game would shrink. Yeah, if you keep only the exact same people, they just trickle away slowly. It's an unavoidable thing. With only two new numbered Final Fantasy games have released since, it's been quite a while since the MMORPG first launched. A Realm Reborn was released 10 years ago, and although they compare it to the latest games, which are out when they think about its release 10 years ago, that would give them a kind of sense of a notion that the quality of the game is low. Yeah, basically, even though it's a 10-year-old game, people look at it now and compare it to other games now. Don't get me wrong, it's not like the game was a graphical masterpiece in A Realm Reborn, but at the same time, if every other game looks better as the years go on and this one stays the same, it is a struggle. I mean, even WoW has done a lot to upgrade their graphics, even updating the cinematics that they release, like the actual, like the War Within cinematics, and the quality of that is part of that same effort. You want it to look as visually appealing as possible, so newer people see it and go, I have to play that. And that's an important thing. I know a lot of us are like, oh, it's gameplay over graphics. A lot of people need the graphics. Like, they just can't get into it if it's not like, oh my God, that's like the best thing I've ever seen. So I understand what they're talking about here. Important thing with MMOs, we need to constantly get new players in. Yeah, they just said that. So by implementing the graphics update, we can actually improve the appeal for 14 to those type of players. It's not just players who benefit, but the development team as well. There is the third reason, and this I wouldn't say so much as a problem for our development team, but in terms of the mentality, that we have in the development team. A Realm Reborn was released in 2013, and when we look at graphics pipeline, it's now 2 generations old. Yeah, PS3 was what it released for. The artists who are working on 14, I want to give them a better environment. By being able to work on more advanced graphics technology, they can advance their career and also be able to work with newer features. So there's a benefit for both in the sense that the players can benefit from better quality, but our artists and engineers in the team can benefit from using more advanced technology that advance their careers. That's been a big thing in the 14 team. They constantly talk about how, and this even in Final Fantasy XI's team, the like 6 people in the closet that worked on that game, they have been working on other projects apparently in recent times ever since they kind of went into like true maintenance mode after the release of the previous expansion. They want them to learn things, pick up new things, and not just be stuck using PlayStation 2 technology for the rest of their career. So totally understand where they're coming from that. It's also efficiencies that we will gain by using better graphical technology. The graphics update will be a difficult endeavor, but I think because of the benefits, we really want to give it our best and see it through. The overhaul improvements we've seen enjoying on the PS5 since that version launched in 2021, we had optimized our graphics pipeline for the PlayStation 5 version. We also used the benefits of the PlayStation 5 SSD. The SSD is a very efficient I/O, which is a technical term for inputs and outputs. The reading of the data on the PlayStation 5 is extremely fast. We'll continue to make the best of that moving forward, as well as when it comes to the PlayStation 5 version as well. We introduced several graphics options. They give almost the same playing experience as on PC. It's great to think that every generation of console from this point on, as long as physical consoles actually last in this current environment, is going to have an SSD in it. It's made the most recent generation of gaming so much better for everybody that I genuinely skip playing games on PC sometimes. At this point, I go for the more stable, most of the time, more stable environment on console. And while not always the case when it comes to 14, I do think that it levels that playing field a lot, as he's saying here. But this is the reason why you clicked on the video in the first place. Gearing up. Yeah, that's a topic. And this is a much bigger topic than this article has time to cover. But they cover one important thing: the relic weapons. And as we skip down just a few lines, for example, the approach to relic weapons, one of the most prestigious type of weapons you can earn in the game, has changed with every expansion and is set to change once again in Dawntrail, thanks to player feedback. See, they hear you. That's why you say things. Say them, in a constructive manner, but say them. Anyway, naturally, I'm not able to give any concrete information for relic weapon quests because it's still in the planning process. I do appreciate that some people do say that it's too easy in Endwalker, but on the other hand, generally players are playing many jobs on a single character. So although the weapon itself is easy to make, they can benefit from being able to enhance several weapons for different jobs on the same character. But on the other hand, when we think about players who have been playing for a long time, I think for a lot of them, what really sticks in their memory is the original Zodiac weapons and how difficult it was to, like, for example, collect all the materials to enhance those weapons. And so when we think about it that way, it's great for the players to be able to reminisce on that kind of aspect. I want to reiterate that I'm not going to make it exactly the same as it was originally, but I do appreciate that it gives a sense of reward to the players. So I would like to keep that in mind. We are currently proceeding with our planning for the new content, but I will also add that we will have various routes in place in terms of the methods to enhance these weapons. That is exactly what they said about the Bozia versions of the weapons. They said, yeah, we have content in mind, but if you don't want to do this content, other than just progressing the story so that you can get to the next step, we're going to make sure you have an option on the outside. Some of the steps were like exclusively on the outside to boot. And so it sounds like that's the approach again, which does give you that grind sense that the Zodiac weapons have, while also making it a lot more streamlined, closer to what we expect from a modern weapon. I loved grinding out my Bozia weapons on content. Now we have to see if they can do that better here, because that is awful to do now. I do not wish making Bozia weapons on anyone. Resistance weapons are awful to try to make now. They need to do something about that, but they also need to make sure the new content doesn't fall into that same trap that the Bozia weapons did. Over 10 years since its launch, Final Fantasy XIV is an online game that's not just going strong, but continues to evolve in exciting ways. That's thanks in part to the development team not being afraid to embrace change with each expansion. Not enough change. And to try different things while also taking care to forge ahead in the right ways. The writer's real proud of himself for that one. I do it too. It's fine. The horizon is looking bright indeed for Dawntrail and beyond. So yeah, we're going away from just tomes. I still think tomes are going to be a major option, and they always have been. Historically, the Zodiac the Zodiac weapon and the Anima weapon, the two originals, you can do them almost entirely with tomes, minus like 2 steps. So, I mean, I expect that to still be a thing here. Take some spare tomes, get a few spare things, or grind out the rest. That's kind of what I wanted for this. I wanted tomes to be an option. I didn't think Endwalker was bad for having tomes be an option. I just didn't like it was the only option. Sometimes you want to play the game for longer than 5 minutes, or do an expert roulette every day, or just do hunt trains or whatever. We want something to dedicate our time to. Eureka, I've gotten a lot of mileage out of. Bosia, I got a ton of mileage out of. Loved it. But, you know, tomes as an option is fine. It's not the only thing. But that's going to be a wrap for this interview. We are starting to see a number of interviews come out with not just Yoshi-P. I believe it was Kate who did an interview with PC Games. I think they posted an article online. I think it's only part 1 of the article. So I actually would like to post some things on that. She talks about writing for Dawntrail, localizing for Dawntrail, and the challenges of trying to take inspiration from the cultures that make up the approximate land masses that they're using without appropriating those things, which is a really, really important topic for localization and something they are definitely going to be under scrutinization for constantly throughout Dawn. They're already under it right now, but like that article goes into how they're approaching that entire problem with Dawntrail. So probably going to post a video on that as well. But for now, that is going to be a wrap for this video. Let me know what you think about the Relic weapons. Are you, for some reason, we'll just agree to disagree on this, a fan of the Endwalker weapons and how they are obtained? Are you someone who's looking more for something like the Zodiac, more like Eureka or Bosia? Where do you sit on the Relic train of which version of them you like the most? Put it in the comment section of the video below. Be sure to like and subscribe and stay tuned. Don't forget, we got news coming from PAX. We got news coming from the 14-hour broadcast and hopefully more interviews like this one. Anyway, with that, I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care.